pleasure planet of my own design, the cinema gods would have these levels, right? And the people that make me stare wide-eyed, mouth agape, leaning forward in my chair, they're at a very high circle. But those that also at the same time help me understand the world and how it works, a level above that. If you get giggles and laughs and guffaws and chuckles from me at the same time, I bow down. So like Mads does all of that. If you've seen Red Chapel, if you've seen The Ambassador, or you are planning to go see Black Swan, which is not quite as funny as perhaps some of the things of Red Chapel have been, you see that he jumps all those hurdles I mentioned and a whole lot more. So when I heard he was going to be here, I was like, if I can be of help, so here I am. And make sure you go see, it's only the first 2 episodes of Black Swan of a 4-episode series, but I think you will be demanding to see the others afterwards once you do. Basically, if I was to describe it, what I feel Mads has done, it takes kind of that, punk rock spirit, the promise of 70s new journalism, along with like a time-honored tradition of muckraking, of holding power accountable, and exposing the inner workings. And what is more fun than that? So welcome to...
Thank you so much. I will do my best to deliver. And thank you to Diane and Double Exposure for bringing me and my son Viggo here. We're very happy to be here. Thank you.
So corruption and oppression, the tools of the powerful, as it were, have been, I think, both your battleground and sandbox, as it were. And when I look at the different films, like one of the things I love, like I'm thinking all the time when I'm watching your movies, you're challenging me, I'm wondering about how it all comes together. But one of the things that always happens early for me is that question of process. Like, do these stories find you? Do you find the stories themselves? What is it that makes you, have the confidence that, you're entering these realms of unknown because they're not scripted? Action is happening, unfolding before our eyes. What is that process, and how do you? What is the dividing line where you say, yes, this is the one that I'm going down the rabbit hole?
I think it was Donald Rumsfeld who spoke about the unknown unknowns. I love the unknown unknowns, and that is in my mind the true spirit of documentary making. I have never understood people who write scripts for documentaries. That doesn't make sense in my mind. He died recently, a Danish documentary legend, Jørgen Leth, but his definition of documentary filmmaking was setting up a trap in the woods and then waiting nearby to see who falls into the trap. Which I think is a wonderful definition of documentary filmmaking.
And are you at all the time attuned, looking, you catch the perpetrators in the act, like when is that point when you say this is a film or a series?
Well, first and foremost, I think reality is geared towards risk takers. If you venture into a risky project where the stakes are high, and I'm speaking on something which almost has occult connotations to it, reality will be there for you. And I've experienced that over and over again. What is more difficult is knowing when to call it quits, when to stop. which is why my documentary projects often evolves into year-long processes. The longest being a documentary series called The Mole, about a retired chef who lives in the suburbs of Copenhagen, who infiltrates the Danish-North Korean Friendship Association, and then is recruited for the International North Korea Friendship Association, the KFA, and is groomed to be the personal assistant to their leader, which brings him to North Korea. He is given medals, and gradually the North Koreans begin asking him for people who would like to invest in North Korea. So we invent a fake businessman who is he is played by a guy who is a former jet-set cocaine dealer in Copenhagen. Because you need a thief to catch a thief. Which brings him to North Korea as well, and the North Koreans are super excited about him, and suddenly these two, the retired chef and the former jet-set cocaine pusher, are flying all around the world, meeting with North Korean arms dealers, because you work on it on a year-by-year basis, you get used to this insanity, actually. So it's very difficult to say we have to stop now, because you just want it to continue. Right. Yeah.
No, I found like the very first time I haven't seen that film, first of all, or series, and I have to now. So
I will send you a screener link. Yeah.
But when I first saw Red Chapel, like I wanted to find you because I was like, he's gonna get killed. Mads is gonna get killed in the midst of doing this. I felt that same thing in The Ambassador. I'm so curious in Black Swan, you speak of the safe house and the things that you set up for the subject in the event things go awry. But what are the precautions that you have to take first for yourself and your team when you enter these? Because you're in dangerous territory.
Well, first and all, and that's an important lesson for filmmakers and journalists who are prone to become paranoid, which is a good thing. You have to be paranoid when working in these areas.
In all things in film, I think paranoia is a gift.
Yes, definitely. But at one point, I spoke with a guy who used to be the special advisor to the former Danish prime minister, and he's a security expert. And he told me, he said basically, you need to relax and understand that evil people have a lot of problems. It's a part of being an evildoer. You have a lot of problems. And odds that an evil person will dedicate his entire time to doing you, hurting you, harming you, are very small. And that is something I've always clung onto since, the idea that evil people have a lot of problems.
Big agenda, big to-do list.
Yes, they have a big to-do list.
And so as you've gone on, what have been the lessons that if we wanted to enter such worlds, you've started to subscribe to your team around you to take precautions? What are those precautions we can take?
Well, first and foremost, and that is a cliche, but it's an important one. Filmmaking is very much a team effort, and so is very much the Black Swan. I did it with 3 very gifted investigative journalists from the national Danish television station TV2, and my cherished producer Peter Engel, who is here. We are very obsessed with security. basically because you have to be. But as you see in Black Swan, as it evolves, it's difficult to protect yourself against a source, a collaborator, a protagonist whom you think is your friend, and then suddenly flips and becomes an antagonist. That is something I have never been involved in before, and that is very much tricky business.
Forget what you just heard. That was called a spoiler.
It's a spoiler, yes. Sorry.
Yeah. You never heard that.
No.
And I'm curious, you know, like these are crimes, like in your films that are being perpetrated. The subjects are criminals, thus. When do you, it feels like the many hats that you wear as filmmaker, journalist, even entertainer, they all have different agendas of where to go. Where is that spot where you say, I've got to see this to the end of the story, or something bad is going down here, as some of the stuff that occurred in Black Swan that gets weaved into the narrative? Where is the line of saying, like, or if there needs to be a line, like this has to stop, or we're involved in something really deep and troubling? Or is the story driving you forward at all times?
No, I am basically going wherever the story takes me. But my daytime job is journalism, and that has made me very sensitive to, but also interested in the various genres of journalism. Journalism about Israel, Palestine, journalism about Africa in general, financial crime journalism. And you have all these tropes, all these genres of journalism who are almost collapsing under their own weight because people know the patterns. They know the cliches. If you have read one article or feature story about Israel-Palestine, you know, the next time you encounter one, you most likely you will think, here we go again, and avoid it somehow. So everything which deviates from the genre, which offers you something new and exciting, is of enormous interest to me. And if you are, you know, if you have sensibilities about this, it can really do a lot to gain you a new audience. And also to tell stories which are genre-defying, genre-breaking, which I think is important.
I can't even begin to tell you how much I agree with that. You know, I think like one of my closest things I've ever had to a mentor was somebody who very much adhered to the idea of we have to make strange. We have to change the way we look. And when I think so much about nonfiction stories as well as fiction, it is precisely how do you get off that rut, that formula, you know, so somebody sees it with fresh eyes. As a filmmaker, you know, I think that's always the hardest job we have, is whether it's scripts or cuts, how do we bring, you know, beginner's eyes to a project? And that's to look at it as the audience would, right? Like, wow, and open ourselves up. And that's what I think you nailed it for me, what I think I find so refreshing about your work.
Thank you. What really made me happy and also proud was with the Black Swan. which became a blockbuster in Denmark and also Norway and Sweden.
The most watched series ever, I think I saw.
Yes.
Danish series. So.
Thank you. And at one point, I received an email from the mother of a 13-year-old boy, and she was writing that she had done everything possible to make her son read books without any success at all. She had even offered him money to read books. He simply refused. But then he watched Black Swan, and now he was reading everything he could get his hands on about financial crime, VAT fraud, tax fraud. Maybe that can become a problem later on. But
he sensed a business opportunity.
yes, but it's a wonderful story. Yeah.
Yeah, I've I look at those movies, and amongst the many hats of provocateur, journalist, filmmaker, artist, is also change agent. Like I assume your films have resulted in beyond just the text that we see at the end of Black Swan in terms of the people who were involved. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like what happened after any of your movies?
Yeah. Well, some of my movies have repercussions and after effects which continues for a very long time. Regarding the ambassador, I still get emails from diamond dealers in Central Africa who watch the film. And regarding the Black Swan, the repercussions are ongoing.
Just to set that up for those that don't know, like Denmark is recognized as the least corrupt country in the world,
yeah,
but that wasn't true.
And you should, these surveys about the least and the most corrupt countries in the world are based on the pollsters asking people, do you think you are the citizen of a corrupt country? And because Danes, right from the cradle, have been drilled into believing that they are the inhabitants of the least corrupt country in the world, by reflex answers, there's no corruption in Denmark. And that is like, reaffirming the idea that Denmark is a country without any corruption, basically. Which is why Francis Fukuyama talks about getting to Denmark as Denmark being the antipode of corruption. But that is simply not true. Every year in Denmark there is whitewashing for an amount of 100 billion Danish kroner. And no one actually talks about who is doing all this whitewashing, because it deviates from the master narrative that Denmark basically does not have corruption. And then came the Black Swan, which was for many Danish people, but also for Swedes and Norwegians, who also believe that their countries are very, very not corrupt. That was a matrix moment, because the Black Swan shows collusion between the upper world and the netherworld, between high-ranking, top-notch lawyers and basically outlaw bikers and street gangs, but also environmental fraud, which you would normally find in Naples, in Italy, going on in Denmark, on a highly organized level. And that has really affected how Danes think of Denmark, and the debate and the discussion continues still, basically.
And that's a theme, I think, throughout your work, the kind of false construct of reality and what is needed to break through it. You know, I feel like I see it there, and I'm realizing that's another reason I so enjoyed it, saying it. So thank you. We've got time for a question or two. Now's your chance. First in the front gets it in. This is why you want to sit up front. Let this be a lesson.
All right, so who is the least corrupt country in the world? I just want to start with that. And then can you tell us, how did you get started? Because we often look at, we look back, but we don't get to the beginning. How did you get started with the work that you do?
Well, the first television documentary project I did was for Danish broadcasting, which was a project called Danes for Bush, where me and a colleague traveled to the States during the re-election of George W. Bush, posing as Danish neoconservatives, driving around in a campaign bus, handing out badges, saying, "Save us from old Europe." It definitely had its moments. But back in Denmark, a friend of mine told me, where is the risk in this for you? Driving around making fun of Republican Americans and basically exploiting something very nice about America. It's a free and open society, and that you can even engage with an election process without any hindrance.
That was then.
So I thought if you should use the same methodology, but making it risky, where would that be? And that led me to North Korea. But that is basically how I ventured into filmmaking.
Is that the least corrupt country?
North Korea?
Trying to address like corruption, like I always like this analogy. There was a arguably great nonprofit called the Transparency Project that studied corruption across the world, and of course was implicated in the Panama Papers of being very corrupt itself. So like it's hard. Like it's saying, do you love your mother? You know that joke.
Yeah.
It's a challenge. Right there. Mike's coming to you because it's all being recorded. I picked that up.
Just wanted to say, years ago I saw Cold Case, I'm going to say it wrong, Hammarskjöld.
Perfect.
Okay, very good. And it was such a serious and really amazing film, but I also appreciated that you brought some humor in. I kind of remember you packing, and it was just so funny. And so I always heard, if you make them laugh in the first 15 minutes, you can make them cry at the end. And I appreciate that while this is just a compliment, it's not a question.
Oh, thank you.
But I appreciate that while you're taking on these really incredible, and in that case, horrific details, that you allowed the audience to breathe a little bit and still be pulled along in a way that we didn't feel that amazing oppressiveness, from the get-go. So I just applaud you for that.
Thank you. No, I think having comic relief and humor in the documentaries, in films, is immensely important, especially if you're dealing with something which is horrible, awful, scary. And it's no matter if you are the playmaker or if you are the one who uses comedy, or it's your characters. And what I find most exciting is evildoers who are also funny. And a prime example of that is in the Black Swan. There is in Denmark now he is known as the torture biker, Fasar, who is a Danish-Pakistani member of the Bandidos, who is a completely deranged and crazy character.
And charming.
But he's also charming and funny, and he speaks you not being Danish will not be able to appreciate that, but he speaks Danish in a very old-fashioned way, like people speak Danish in comedies from the 50s or 60s, which makes him charming and funny, but also even more scary. So yeah, thank you.
And he cuts quite a figure.
Yes, yeah.
You know, it strikes me like when I remember early in my career, you know, an expert sat me down and said, Ted, you have to decide, are you an artist or are you a businessman? You got to pick a lane and you have to be in one lane. And yet you're a journalist, a performer, a provocateur, a documentary filmmaker, an artist. What are the pressures you find within the system for you to pick a lane?
Well,
And please don't.
No. I like preserving having the element of surprise. But also you have to consider that you have to, only by changing very little about traditional journalism, you can turn it into something completely different. One of the most successful satirical shows in Mexico was a guy reading the news as a TV presenter reads the news. The only difference was that he's wearing a red nose while doing so. And that became a gigantic hit. So, props can, for example, a simple prop can change everything.
Make sure you go, see the Black Swan, write to your local channels and say, we need the Black Swan here in America because it hasn't screened here yet. No. So let's make that happen. Oh, we have a rush of questions. Perfect.
Awesome.
Keep us on the stage. We have nothing following us. We're here for the next hour. Let's go.
Well, one is a practical question. Where do we see it after the first two for tomorrow, seeing it tomorrow? But, and then, I was just thinking, you see all this corruption in the world, and it's really intense, and, I find it very destabilizing when I, learn this kind of, mind-blowing information about a place, and it's maybe this, how do you sleep at night? How do you, keep moving forward? How do you kind of reconcile when things feel so unstable and you learn, such a surprising element of the world which kind of, turns things upside down, and, how do you kind of keep going?
Well, but by nature, I am a Protestant. I feel guilty all the time. Yes. And the pressures to deliver. The myth about Sisyphus is the essence of journalism. So you just have to keep going, basically. But also, what's exciting about journalism is that once you're thinking, I'm totally burned out. This is. This leads to nowhere, and then suddenly you get an email saying, I have secret recordings with the Danish Prime Minister sitting in a basement offering me a bribe. Do you want to meet me? And that is what is so wonderful about journalism. That actually happened. Yeah.
Adam?
Hi, Mads. Thank you for coming. I'm Adam from the New York Times. I was wondering if you could talk about picking your bets and story selection. You mentioned that a lot of your projects take a lot of time, and I'm curious, how you think about having a gimmicky or spoofy concept, but not having the there of an investigation, or you have a brilliant investigation, but you don't have a creative vehicle to tell it. So, in addition to the characteristics you look for, I'm actually curious if you could share an example of like a great story that you passed on, because I assume you have a really high bar, and I'm curious like what good looks like, but not good enough for you.
Oh, that is difficult.
I had that question, but you asked it so much better. I didn't ask that question. I'm so glad you asked it, Adam.
I was working with another filmmaker for a long time about the leader of the Bosnian Serbs, Radovan Karadzic, who was hiding. He was a wanted war criminal, but being protected by the Serbian community. And the idea was to find him, basically, and also, if possible, I wouldn't say kidnap him, but bring him where he should be brought. And the gameplay was befriending the inner circle of Radovan Karadzic, who are very, very right-wing nationalistic Serbs who meet in Belgrade on a regular basis, drinking beer and Rajka. And me and my colleague would travel to Belgrade on a monthly basis, hanging out with these guys, which was wearing me down, basically. But it was yet also exciting because gradually we found out where he was. And then we secured funding for the film. And I had, I wasn't sure if that film was, if it would be possible making it. So in a way, maybe I was subconsciously jinxing it. But then, just as we were about to start shooting for real, he was captured. And I found myself in this very unpleasant situation, being sad about Radovan Karadzic having been caught. But then it turned out that he had been hiding in plain sight, posing as a mystical sex healer on Bosnian cable television under the name Dr. Dabic. And it's still a film which needs to be made.
I had it pitched to me by another filmmaker because there was a coffee house that he stayed in regularly and had a whole, and I remember I was like, oh my God. Yeah. One day. Come on, another question.
Hi, I'm Richard Hall, an independent filmmaker. The only film of yours I've seen is Cold Case, Hammarskjöld, and I was just blown away by the creative things you did, but I was wondering, you have this framing device where there's two different African stenographers.
Yeah.
They're sort of typing your stream of consciousness and your thoughts, and I've just never seen anybody do anything like that, but how did you come up with that idea, and what were you thinking about there?
Well, it's because the idea began because the main villain of the film, the commander of a nefarious, mystical, paramilitary, deep state organization in apartheid South Africa called the South African Institute for Maritime Research. He was, everything he wrote was written on a typewriter. When people met him in cafes in Johannesburg, he was together always with a female secretary dressed in white, who was stenographing everything he said. And then she would write it on a typewriter. So in my mind, somehow it was a film not about typewriting, but a film which called for using typewriters. And then I was hoping that when I was working with the two African secretaries, that they would eventually begin asking me questions, having agency of their own, challenging what I was telling them, and luckily that is exactly what happened, which made that idea come alive and become interesting. But I can't explain why there are two and not one.
You have to ask Louis Buñuel about that one.
Yeah.
But the typewriter is just so cinematic, plus the sound of it.
Yes, the sound is so nice, very much so.
Thank you all for coming. This big thank you to Mads for being
Thank you.
here.
Thank you.
You, DX Festival, the symposium. Really great for you all coming. Thank you for showing up.